Well, we're going to be
Yeah.
Okay, let me just get it. Sorry, guys, I'm trying to look at my
It's a legal discussion. Oh, what after that? That's about the city water.
I know. Okay, so now I'm on. Call this meeting back to order. It is 9:34. The next item has been taken out of order by vote. It is item H, consider contribution to the dark store lobbying effort. Is it Trustee Bachhorst that will start it off? Or- Okay, Trustee Bachhorst.
Okay, great. I'll try to be succinct. Thank you all for moving this item. So what we are being asked to do in this memo by the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is to contribute to basically a lobbying effort to close the dark store tax loophole, and I'll try to be succinct like I said, which is basically a loophole that allows large commercial spaces like Lowe's, Home Depot, Walgreens, etc., to argue that the valuation of their property should be based not on comparables in the area, but on vacant properties in less desirable regions. So, for example, how this would impact taxpayers and residents of Shorewood if this were to happen here. One of these buildings, and this has happened in the state of Wisconsin, and including the Walgreens and also in Appleton, where a court has found that a property, for example, I'll use the one from Appleton, that a CVS property in Appleton should be valued at $1.8 million, which was much less than the city's 4.4 assessment, even though a higher value was based on actual sale price. So we can't do this in the residential world, and the way this impacts us as a municipality is a shift from the tax burden from the commercial district to the property owners, which already pay a disproportionate amount of our taxes. The state of Wisconsin is very high. I think it's 68% of
Ours is over 80.
what's that?
Residential, I think ours is over 80%. Is that correct? I'm pretty sure.
It's one of the highest. So we already have a substantial amount that's has been shifted. So this again is something that often will get tied up in courts, which larger corporations and big box owners do have deeper pockets as far as legal fees are concerned. And so there are a variety of reasons that I believe as an elected official here in Shorewood and also as the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Board of Directors Vice President, that it's a definite concern and it's a major priority. The League is actually making some interesting partnerships with the Counties Association, the Towns Association, etc., to fight this. And what the League is asking is that municipalities contribute in these lobbying efforts in the amount no less than $1,200, but of course, they will take whatever contribution any municipality is willing to contribute. There has been, of course, some pushback from some more conservative radios or talk shows, etc., about this kind of effort. But it is something that could adversely impact Shorewood, one day. And we do have some precautions built in for the new construction at Metro Market, etc., but those will sunset eventually. So, where am I going with this?
Got it?
Well, yeah, I think that's, unless someone has questions regarding like what this
Can you just
means.
go over one more time what it means? So does it allow a property to be valued at the value of something, like one of their dark stores as opposed to the store that actually?
Thank you,
So
exactly. So a dark store, let's say you could value a very popular Target, let's just go with that, right? That's doing really well Target could argue that instead of being assessed at $5 million, they should be, their assessment should be reflective of a vacant store somewhere else, anywhere else, doesn't even have to be in that general vicinity.
Okay.
So can I do a
Yeah.
clarification point too? So my hesitation, but I like the comment that Tammy made, or Trustee Barker's made at the end. Shorewood isn't in danger at this moment because the two big box retails that we have are really Walgreens and Metro Market, and they both, in the developer's agreement, while that TIF is open, have protections against, if that valuation dropped based on this legislation, then they still have to pay the assessed value in the contract, so it wouldn't make a difference. But Trustee Bachhorst is correct in saying that when those sunset, when we pay off those TIDs, it could really hit us. And so what has happened around the country is there are many cases that are getting approved by the court system that are back taxing. So like, I think it was Wauwatosa, is not only was the assessment challenged and won in the court system for the year they were assessing, but then they were ordered to pay back taxes based on the fact that store was over assessed because it should be assessed as vacant because it's a box and nobody else would come there. So that's the issue I struggle with because it won't hit us for 20 years, or however long the TIFs are open. That's my struggle. But however, on the flip side, I also feel it's important to show we're in unity with our partners, that if something comes up that affects us, that we would also want them to contribute. So I struggle. I think I would support this, but those are the things that I was thinking about in my thought process. Trustee Carpenter.
And so the contribution to the league is to support lobbying efforts, or what does that contribution go towards?
Yes, it is to support legislative lobbying efforts. And there have been, of the 601 municipalities in the state of Wisconsin, I don't have the exact number we talked about at our strategic plan meeting.
Well, I just want to mention a couple of things. As you mentioned, the Wauwatosa right now is engaged in a lot of litigation. Mayfair, Lowe's, they have targets. They have now that indirectly can affect other municipalities in your taxing district, because if those are reduced, then Wauwatosa's share of the overall tax go down, and that theoretically some of that gets pushed out for some of the taxes. I can't do it, I don't know exactly what that is, but there is some impact on the communities that don't have those stores. Shorewood the suit was just filed by Roundy's over their tax assessment against the village of Shorewood about 2 weeks ago.
We have not been served.
The village hasn't been served, but they filed a suit. Remains to be seen what will happen about that, but it just was filed. So the village hasn't been served, so until the village gets served, it doesn't get sent off to the insurance carrier. It remains to be seen what that impact will be.
Is it the same, just to be clarified, is it the same rationale of why they're suing, because they feel they're over
In a
assessed?
complaint, they don't go into
Okay,
all
just
of
the wording.
they just make general allegations that the assessment is excessive and they want it reduced. Now, I just want you to be aware that actually there is a tax assessment case filed against Shorewood. Whether it's going to have, whether it's related to the dark store yet, I don't know. But just.
We appreciate that information. The more specific information is forthcoming that we can provide to actually analyze what that is. And after such point, we are actually served.
So my statement was still correct. They are obligated to have that floor of assessment, but it's much higher, the assessment right now. It's probably double. I think it's 17,000 and we're at 38. So there is a there's a huge margin that they can, if they go to court, that they can reduce their value, and we will not close the TIF early.
Well,
So anyways.
in theory, that's what they're likely to do.
Okay.
So just a quick.
Oh, trustee, yes, you.
No, that's.
It's getting even worse, isn't it? See, now it's just you.
All
So
right.
just to be clear, this is enacted law and we're fighting to change. Is this enacted law that we're fighting to change, or is this law that's proposed?
It's not, it is some court decisions, and the League of Wisconsin Municipalities is seeking to have legislation that will
Okay.
Prevent.
overcome or mandate a different treatment that doesn't allow this dark store theory to be used.
Now it's in the courts.
And I, just so everyone knows, I did go to the league's conference for, I just remember what it was for, but I was told to go, and the Republicans and the Democrats are like this close. It's headed, the committee is headed by a Republican, so it just missed it this last legislative session, but it is very actively, there's a lot of collaboration around it.
Well, it's not a partisan issue, but obviously, the associations that represent the commercial business and operations would not be in favor of this, generally speaking. It's not a partisan matter, but
So it just shifts the tax burden, as Trustee Bachor said, if it goes through, now that we're being sued, if that does go through, imagine that 20 million, say, or whatever it may be, now the residents pick up. So it is huge, and for this reason that I just found out, I will definitely support it. Trustee Bachor.
60% of the legislature signed on to this, but there was so much money that came in from outside groups, business communities, et cetera, that helped kill the efforts to close this loophole. So there's been a lot of money being spent, of course, on preventing this from actually achieving fruition, even though it is majority of the legislature that does support this bill.
Any further questions? Trustee Bachor?
I'd make a motion to approve a $1,200 contribution to the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Dark Store Elimination effort.
Second. Discussion.
This is unbudgeted. Where is this coming out of our budget?
Thank you. Rebecca,
Where would you like it to come
where do we have money? We don't have our files in front of us.
from? Yeah, typically this would come out of a village board line item, under additional studies and efforts that we have in there right now. There was nothing budgeted within that line item, but for accounting purposes, that's where we would log it.
What about manager? Is there money in the manager line? You have a study line too.
Yeah, no. If you so choose, you're more than welcome to put it within the scope of that line, but
It's empty too.
appropriately.
I'm just asking it where the funds are. So if we had to transfer, you know what I'm saying? Like, I get we need to put it in the right line item that we would designate, but if there's zero, then we need to know where the money's going. Like, what fund are we using the money from?
You would be evaluating that at year end.
Okay, so it could be from just drop to the bottom line, and if we had, okay. Trustee Mattis.
I have a hard time with this, and I'm going to vote no, because the homeowners in Shorewood, the commercial, all of our commercial property, the entirety of our commercial district has been in a TIF since 1995. So they have been paying into the general fund at 1995 levels, okay? I think in 2017, this board voted to move money that could have been put towards closing TID 1 sooner and to transfer that money out of TID 1 for the CDA purposes. It's essentially extending the life of TID 1 as long as we possibly could. If this board had any concern about tax shift to homeowners, I think that issue would have been addressed previously, and it hasn't. So the justification of this, of a shifting tax burden, and I personally asked the league at I think last year's conference that I would be willing to present an alternate view of TIF, and there's absolutely no interest on the part of the League of Municipalities of considering that there may be other viewpoints on TIF. So to start talking now about, oh, isn't this terrible that we're shifting property taxes onto homeowners, given the context in this village and our overuse of TIF, I just find frankly laughable, and so I'm going to vote no.
Thank you. Trustee Bachor.
I'm going to say that that previous comment is an opinion, and also I don't agree with it, and I don't think it's relevant to what we're discussing here. We're talking about two completely different things, and you are welcome at the, I'm hoping you'll attend the league's annual conference this year, because there are a lot of TIF discussions that will be going on, and there's a lot of pending legislation that we're hoping that the state will adopt, but that's a different discussion. But so, yes, it is a really burdensome tax shift potentially. There's a study of 12 municipalities where this is very likely to occur, and it would result in about an 8% increase in, on average, in tax bills. And that's pretty significant.
So I just would like to comment, I agree with Trustee Amenta on there needs to be a realization of the tax burden being shifted through TIFs, but I also agree that this is a huge thing, and.
We're not talking about TIFs tonight, though. We're talking about.
I'm just, correct. So I wanted to mention, she mentioned it, I agree with her, but I also agree that this is a separate piece of legislation, and I am concerned with the tax shift from commercial onto residential, and I always have been, and so I will support this tonight. Any other further discussion? Trustee Buckles.
I'd like to say also that I appreciate everyone listening and understanding the gravity of which the situation presents us with. I also want to say that I'm here, as a trustee, that being on the league board, this has no impact on me, whether or not, we were to vote for this. What I mean by that is,
It's not a conflict.
it's not, there's